So I made up some sample questions on there just as pot questions. Take a look at that. That's sort of the level of detail I'm going to be going for, and give you a feel for some example questions. And you know, come the end of April, I'm going to really feel like writing a whole bunch of new questions after writing those. Sure I am. So they might be a real good use of your time. That said, I really do want to have you guys leave here knowing more about cannabis than 99% of the earth. All right? And if that's like not something you can really get behind, this is going to be a rough test for you. All right? But this is worth knowing in part because the way we know this stuff is the way we know lots of things in the social sciences. And so understanding that will help you understand other research literatures. But also, I really want you to leave this class skeptical, not only of science and the social sciences, but of the messages you get from the media and your government. All right. When you left for college and your mom said some lefty pinko fag is going to tell you a bunch of crazy shit, don't go to that class. I'm that motherfucker. All right? So I really want your ear here, but just as I'm saying be skeptical of this, be skeptical of science, be skeptical of government, be skeptical of me. Ask me, how do you know that? And I will explain. Right? And that intellectual process is so much better than me saying, this is this, this is this, this is this. Right? So stay with me on these things, and it will benefit you for years on end. All right? The guy who took this class in 2006 is now at the State Assembly trying to get medical marijuana passed for New York. I'm pretty fucking happy about that. All right? God only knows the cool shit you guys are going to do. So stay with me. When we left off, we were talking about the gateway theory. And the tacit assumption of the gateway theory is that somehow the use of one drug drives you into the use of another. In this case, marijuana is going to make you a heroin addict somehow. Right? And we talked about the fallacious reasoning, the misunderstanding of causality inherent in that. Right? Nevertheless, this idea just will not fucking die. Right? I have to have this discussion with cops at least twice a year about how marijuana is not a gateway drug. Right? So one of the big evidence studies that gets trotted out every time we hear about gateway theory is by Linsky, and it was in the Journal of the American Medical Association, a very prestigious journal. And they had twins, okay? Unfortunately, they weren't all identical twins, okay? But they had twins nonetheless, discordant for cannabis use. One had used marijuana, one had not. And guess what? Early involvement with marijuana predicted more drug problems later in life. Okay? And my point with this is not fucking news. And this is not evidence that marijuana causes drug problems. You shouldn't smoke pot every day when you're 11. Duh. Duh. All right? Why? Where do I begin? All right? The developing brain needs all the help it can get. Cannabinoid intoxication is not helpful. Okay? Being 11 sucked. You probably don't remember because it was so long ago. All right? You have no money. Everybody's bigger than you. Your friends are as crazy as you are. Right? The last thing you need is to be getting high on top of all that. Okay? That's pretty much all this shows. What they try to make it show is smoking cannabis created all these subsequent things. But just because it happened first doesn't mean it created the thing that happened later. Right? Why do I perseverate on this? Because people think that if we can just keep little kids off pot, there will never be any more drug problems again. But what happens? I go to a local high school and I give a little talk, and the kids say, oh, we heard marijuana leads to heroin, so all we did was huff gas. Oh, dude, really? The point is, this leads us to these weird, backhanded prevention efforts that don't really work, and it often creates situations where adults are lying to kids, and kids know when you're lying. Kids have very sensitive bullshit detectors. Right? If I say marijuana leads to heroin addiction, everybody 14 and over knows somebody who smoked pot who isn't a heroin addict. Right? I completely sacrifice my credibility. So then when I say, oh, by the way, methamphetamine shrinks your brain, they're like, aren't you the asshole who said marijuana leads to heroin addiction? You follow? Post pot, ergo propter pot. Really, post hoc, ergo propter pot. Just because something happens first doesn't mean it's the cause of what happened later. And we want to keep that in mind when we're interpreting data. All right? Evidence against the gateway theory is very hard to publish and very, very hard to get in the media. So here are 3 studies, including one by Blaze. Can you remember that? These are folks in treatment. What percentage of them had used hard drugs first? Meaning they used cocaine, they used heroin, they used opiates, something before they actually smoked pot? Between 15 and 40%. Clearly, these folks were not the gateway. All right? Allen Ginsberg, who's that? The beat poet. Right? Allen Ginsberg did heroin first and then smoked pot. Heroin, the gateway drug. Obviously, that's not how it works, in part because it's just not how it works. What do we have, really? A small subset of folks who were really high on what I call sensation seeking. Okay? You know the personality trait. Okay? Who stands in line extra long to ride the front car on the roller coaster? Okay? We know each other. Right? They do all the fucking drugs. Because people who like drugs, right? And then it makes this appearance, this illusion of a gateway, when in fact what we're really saying is there's a personality type. There's some folks who are disinhibited, extroverted, fun-loving drug users who do pretty much all of them. Okay? They also don't wear their seatbelt. They're not particularly great about the whole condom thing. All right? And what a surprise, they blame all this on pot. Because that's what happened first.